Hey, welcome. This is Patrick at Northwoods and John and a couple other people behind the scenes. We have received a bunch of questions. If you had anything specific that you were looking for today, love to hear it. And this is an open forum for our users. Come in and ask anything they want. We've got a couple questions around forms, a couple questions around content library. So we were going to dive into those. So let's jump into the forms questions first. We are working on, I think the city has 7.3, John.
Yes, seven
And
three 24 or so.
yeah, so I don't know if you're up to speed on that, but let's kind of show off kind of some of the things that are new in 7.4 forms, because we did make some enhancements inside there. And then I want to talk about some other options that what you might want to consider. So when you're building a
So
form, you're going to
yeah,
fill
go
ahead. Yeah.
So there was a handful of things that we made adjustments to in forms, and it would have been 7.4.9-ish. So fairly recent. And one of the big ones that I'll start with is that we did add a new kind of input for dates and times. And I think that was at the heart of Pete's question was, being able to do date or email or telephone type inputs. A lot of those you could already do. You could do a text input that had email validation on it. You could do a text input that had telephone validation on it. So those are still options, I'm pretty sure, from the 7.3 timeframe also. But we wanted to make it easier to do a date type of input. And so on the screen here, actually, am I still sharing?
You are. Yep.
Okay, perfect. So on the screen here, we're showing your options for creating a date and or time input. So, whatever the if it's the start date or whatever, and you can give it a label, start. But you have three options: date, time, or date and time. And it's really nice now. The browsers offer like a native date input that has the nice widgets for switching through the calendar if you've got time included. I know Chrome's is really nice for picking hours, minutes, AM, PM, that type of thing. But you've got the option to choose exactly how you want it to look. And we give you the options essentially that are available in HTML to say, well, don't let the user put in a date before this date, and don't let them put one in after this date. So maybe you're just trying to harangue them on a certain range. So you can control the min, the max, step restrictions a little bit more involved, but it's essentially controlling how much you increase the date or time if they're using like an up down arrow in the HTML or in the display of it. So we'll leave it just kind of standard here and just say done. And so now we've got a date input, month, day, year, and time. Let me think here. If I go done and done, because I want to be able to, we got to do a couple things there. And I want to preview this and give a sense for how that works. Let's see. Why is it not showing me my thing? Oh, because this is preview. All right, go away, preview. Let's yeah, this is dev. We can do this. We'll do publish right there, and we'll clean that up later. In fact, I might even go someplace else, but I just want to show how the browser has a lot of nice options as far as using that date and time. So we go to open the live version here.
We're on the dev site, so it's a little bit slow.
Yep, a little bit. All right, yeah, here we go. Perfect. And hopefully this comes through in the screen share.
Yep.
But I clicked the widget and you got a nice month view. If you wanted to pick today, they give you the nice option. Oh yeah, just fill in today, and it puts the current date and time right in there for you. I know one of Pete's questions was, hey, is there a way to do the default? You can do it via JavaScript, but a lot of these browser UIs natively let you choose, something like today and fill it in, based on the current date, and you can clear it out. Or, if you're looking at, again, I want to set it for, a certain time of day, you can do that. You can also just use your keyboard and kind of type through I'm just tabbing through it. So a lot of the accessibility type things are all supported with the native browser options. For the earliest allowed value, I saw Jacob had typed a question. Can you set it to the current date time? Oh yeah, we covered that. So you can't add anything before today. You sure can. The way that you do that is say the earliest date allowed, and we give you in the help some information about how to format these fields and what exactly it's accomplishing. So if you didn't want it to be, today, well, let's see, that's 2024. Today is 06/19. So you just go like so and say done, 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 publish. And if I refresh this and click here, oh, did it not take?
I think if you try, what happens if you submit? Will you get an error if you hit on the
Refresh?
Okay.
I might not have. Normally, it'll show the days before as grayed out. That's the way that it's been. And I just double check that I did it right. Earliest allowed value. Here, let's go. Let's say tomorrow, maybe. Do I have to do times for time input? 0, 0. Oh, for date time inputs, it's got to be formatted like that.
Publish, preview.
Hopefully, yeah. So
Refresh.
let's refresh. Hopefully that's the ticket. Yeah, perfect. So if it's not easily seen on your screen, all the days before today or before the 20th are grayed out. So you can't actually choose any of those days in this widget. And if you do things like modify that step value, you could say, hey, only, every other day is available, and it'll gray out the other options in Chrome, at least. Firefox might do it a little differently. I'm guessing Edge will do the same thing as Chrome because it's built on the Chrome engine. But that's the type of thing you have control with using the dates. The other options, we'll go through those. Dates and times. We made a couple of changes to what used to be, I think it was called Radio Group. We changed a lot of these labels to be a little bit more up to date and kind of modernized with what people are used to, and maybe like Google Forms or Jot Forms or some of these others. We changed the multiple choice so that you do either the radio button, which is a single select, right? I want this option or this one or this one, and it gives you the single select buttons or checkboxes. And so before it was difficult to do a group of checkboxes. You kind of had to do them using the single checkbox field, and you put in multiple. Well, then somebody fills in the form and it says, each named checkbox, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Well, that's not super convenient. It'd be, much nicer interface to have one column that says they checked X, Y, and Z, and not A, B, or C. And so the multiple choice, having the option to do radio buttons or checkboxes, should be much more consistent with what I think a lot of people do forms wise. But you can enter your choices. I want A, I want B, I want C, and I want X and Y and Z. So I got all of those in there. Just like before, you can rearrange these, but if I'm showing them as checkboxes, and it looks like I'm modifying my start date. So I better go in here and say, give me a new field. We'll try that again. Multiple. Choose multiple. Checkboxes. A, B, C, X, Y, and Z. and say done. And here it's giving you the check boxes, and so same thing on the display. The user will get to choose as many as they want, and all of the selected values will appear as one column in the response. That'll go in as one column in our database, and if you have the email set up to go to notify people, you'll see multiple choice, and they'll have B, C, and Z selected or whatever. So that's another small thing that we tweaked with forms. The very small thing, our hidden fields were so hidden you couldn't see them after you put them on the screen. So now if I wanted to hidden input, for example, maybe I'm setting up a more complex JavaScript or something to do some decision making for me. If I wanted to keep track of some hidden value, I could do that by going, and I can define the value. Maybe it's, it doesn't matter what it is. It's for whatever the code is. But now on the screen, you see this dotted line outline here of where the input is. And now you've got an easy way to double click or right click and go back into it. Or because before you had to go into source mode and track down the input in the HTML and then make your adjustment. It was definitely not as friendly. And then there was the file upload changed a little bit. We wanted the ability to control the types of files people could choose to upload. That was starting to be a common request. In addition, you can do things like tell it to enable the camera on the phone, right? So if you got a client filling out the form on their phone and they need to upload a file or an image or whatever, they could activate the camera on their phone, take the picture, and have it automatically add to the form input. So those are the types of things we wanted to accomplish there.
So that's some of the updates on the forms. The people had submitted forms questions, other things. Actually, Joy Lynn, you asked some questions about forms, I thought. No, your blocks. Akima asked some questions about this. Can the submit button open a different web page or display a custom reply based on the entered data? John?
Oh, I'm here now. I can unmute.
Hey.
Thank you so much for this.
You're welcome.
I like the other updates that I've seen so far, especially the yes, no, that condensing that answer. That's great.
Yeah.
And yes, I was referring to the actual form that I was using to, register for the class. So I'm like,
that makes more sense.
Now you get, okay, there you go. Yeah, so you probably saw some more advanced features inside there. So those are right. All right,
I was gonna say, to the question about the submitting things to a landing page based on what was filled in. It's not something that the default form supports. You could probably do it with JavaScript or something along those lines. We do let you submit and land on a specific page. You can designate that in the block editor. Hey, once they've submitted, take them to this thank you page where there's a message or whatever. But can you choose a different page based on inputs? Not today. Also,
not out of the box, but some JavaScript. Right. You could write some JavaScript, not that complex, that could do that.
Right. Yeah. And the idea also of taking input, user input values and then building a reply based on them, we wouldn't do that. I know some other, it's kind of a technical concern security wise, because if you start doing things in your forms where the user enters, some text and maybe some nefarious person is able to inject something, now that's going to get built into a message that then goes out as a reply to people. Well, now, so we don't want to necessarily do anything that could be socially engineering a malware download or something. So could we find a way to mask things or obfuscate some of that stuff? Yeah, probably, but that's a lot more time and effort than what we want to be able to accomplish with a simple basic form. Maybe some of the other tools, Patrick, you were talking about a tool that you were starting to to look at that's new, or jot forms, or some of these others may have options like that. They might not, but yeah. So that's kind of the way that we think about that approach, as far as taking user entered data and then emailing it around, or injecting new content based on it. It's a tricky situation. We got to be careful.
Yeah, could your submit button be hidden and disabled? Hakima asks, and disabled on the form responded dynamically as it is filled in. So that's a bit of conditional logic on the submit button that would have to detect other stuff. So no, it's not a default end user configurable option. But again, could be done with JavaScript. Is that something that you need to do, Hakima?
Yeah, I'm toying with my options and considerations. The to a specific web page is good. That gives me a good option. And thank you for bringing up the security issues with building a reply based on form data. We hadn't considered that.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you've given me some options to think about and work with, and I think I'll just try the simple JavaScript approach to see if I can get what I need done.
Okay,
right.
Fair enough.
One of the things I was thinking of when I read your question about the dynamically dealing with inputs on the form, I was like, oh, so if the text input did something to save the current state, would it have submit that form input, or partially submitted form? And what happens if they change the field, and then does it do another submit? Or am I tracking somehow this session and this interaction with the form, and making sure I don't have 500 entries in the database, right, for one person's edit session on a form? Those are the types of things that I was like, that might be tricky. I mean, we do the Ajax submitting, so it doesn't do a full refresh of the page. And you could probably build a form that maybe was submitting to some handler that could do that type of thing. It probably wouldn't be the base default form that Titan has in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to share my screen for a minute here, John.
Okay.
So this is Cognito Forms. And actually, this is a Jot form. So, Akima, there are two other, and for anybody else that's interested, there's a number of other commercial off-the-shelf forms that aren't too expensive. They actually have I'm in the 14-day trial right now on this particular one, and I built a very simple form, but just give you an idea of this is a whole infrastructure. This is all they got a whole company dedicated just to forms. Same thing with Jot forms, and they have a lot more advanced stuff. If you wanted to, if you see what you like over here, the cost is like $9 a month, $16 a month for ongoing. So it's not, I wouldn't judge it as being onerous or out of control for what might be affordable. Here I'm on. I built this little shirt color. What color shirt do you want for our summer camp shirt this year? And so I dropped the field on there. I think you can't see it because it's covered up right now. There it is, shirt color. And so I can build one. If I wanted to build a different one, here's the basic interface. So it's very similar to what we have, but there's more stuff, and they have conditional logic, page breaks, repeating sections, tables. So you can build kind of structures with more complex forms inside there. Here, the shirt color, what color do you want? That's the label. And then you're picking your choices. How do I want layout side by side or one column, top to bottom? Lots of different options for how it gets laid out. Show this field always. Here we go, conditional logic. Show this field when, and then I can say, all these different values when the entry status is live. And I can't profess to know all how this works at the moment, but if when shirt color is filled out, show it, not, and so on and so forth. So you can build a basic editor, or you can get into actually a scripting where you can, if you get good at the scripting language, you can write in a script language what needs to be done with the conditional logic for any one of the fields that's on the screen. I put a date field on here. after I put it edit, I can't change it from date and time, but similar to what we have, date and time. What day do you want? That's the placeholder text that would pop inside there, default values. Again, here they have a bunch of preconditioned things that you can, formulas that can be put into there. So suffice to say, you can build some pretty sophisticated forms. This is going to take a lot more time to learn. But there's conditional logic, require this field with conditions, make it read only, always, or for certain people, limit the quantity, show custom errors, so on and so forth. Again, if we added other fields, each one of these has some sort of thing. This lookup one is going to take input from other tables, from other forms. So you're going to link forms together, possibly having them all talk to each other. When this is all done, then the submit button, per your question, is going to appear when or never, or this can actually be visible or not. I think you could turn the submit button on and off with learning some of the logic. I think it's going to be very similar to learning JavaScript, honestly. So you're going to have, there's a learning curve involved with Cognito forms if you want to do some of the more advanced stuff. Here's send the emails to Patrick Bieser at Gmail, always, or I think there's conditional options inside of here. So when so such and such shirt color is blue, then send it to, I think you could go, if shirt color is blue, then send it to Bill. And if it's red, then send it to Jim. So these are sort of conditional logic type things that you could build in here as you're going. So once it's all done, you publish. I'm going to save the changes here temporarily. It's going to give you actual code that you could embed in your website. So realizing that now you're going to be calling out to Cognito Forms, their thing. So they're going to be the host of the form itself. Or you could iframe it in. This is probably better to do a seamless drop-in, or the AMP is a mobile version of this. Here's the actual link if somebody wanted to fill that in. So we go over to the form. Here's the shirt color poll. What color do you want? I want blue. And then I have this conditional that the date only appears once the shirt color is filled in, and then you can fill in a date. And to John's link picker, this is giving me the same thing. That's a browser supported version. Similar to what we have in the Titan forms. Hit submit. Now I get an email. An email came into my inbox saying a new form submission has been done. That form could also be submitted to Titan. So if you wanted to populate a data node, it could be submitted not only to Cognito where it keeps track of it, but also to any URL-based listener where you could receive that data. JotForms is another one that a couple of our clients use already with hundreds of forms. And I think their pricing is very, very similar to what Cognito forms are. So we don't have an endorsement per se, but you can get started for free, build some forms, get a sense for what it works or not. And actually, Cognito forms was a bit cheaper. They were $9 a month and $16 a month for more forms and more submissions. So that it looks like a little bit more price effective. So those are some alternatives you might consider. Obviously, here you can see the entries now online. And again, these could have been submitted too. So here's two choices that were submitted. And I think you can download and export this data. If you built a whole bunch of forms of different departments, I think you'd have a little bit more, some complications to do different bits and pieces. So that's another forms option that you could support, or you just want to make you aware of. That's another way to start thinking about it. Any questions on that forms? And want to encourage, this is office hours, so you're supposed to be talking to the professors. That is a requirement. If you want to get an A, you got to show that you're, engaged here. So we certainly welcome questions, encourage you, anything that you don't understand and want us to cover a little bit more of. John, back to you.
Oh, okay. I think that got us through all the questions that we had on forms. So the questions that came after that were primarily around content library. So we wanted to take a little bit of a look through this environment here and show the content library and talk about some of these questions in that context. So one of the questions was, and this was, I think, was a question from Joy Lynn. So feel free to add any background information if you want. Is there a way to select multiple blocks from the block library to insert into a page, or specify how many of a block I want to add? So there's an answer to that question that's affirmative, but it's got to spin it a little bit. Right now, the way that it works, you select one thing from the library and add it. And if you want something else, you come back to it. But that one thing could have a whole ton of blocks inside of it, right? So in this example, right here, this long middle block in this library is actually like probably 20 blocks. So there are a lot of freeform blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's a whole page of content that they structured in a way like a template so that they could drop it in and then fill in all the pieces or make changes to it. And in so doing, they only drop it in once and then make their edits. Something probably that's going to have its uses for sure, and is very valuable and has been helpful to them. But you might be more of I need a background image and I need this overlay text, or maybe you're setting up a stripe that has like the 3 float 33s type thing. Well, you can create that once and then select all 3 of those blocks and copy them together so that they go into the library as one thing that then you can drop in. And some examples like that, I think this is one that has 2 blocks, 2 float or flex 50s, one with the image and one with the overlay text. Wondering if there's an example that's maybe just a 3 up, or this one looks like a 4 up. Well, that's more of a layout. Here we go. This product data list. Well, that's going to be a data list, so that'll be 1 block probably. Yeah. But anyway, the idea is that yes, you can, if you construct the block copy in a way that it has the things you want. And maybe you find yourself in a situation where you kind of are doing it 1 or 2 or 3 different ways. So maybe it's sometimes I got this 4 up, maybe sometimes I got a 2 up with another 50%, something like that. Then kind of see where it lands in your patterns and build the patterns that help you, manage it more efficiently. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So can you walk through how to create that? Because
Absolutely.
I thought you could only add 1 block at a time to the library. So like I have all these separate blocks that I like, mainly I would use this for the blog. Same structure, top and bottom, the middle changes. So as long as it's something that I can change once it's loaded on the page,
Yep.
that would be ideal.
Yep. I totally hear you. So what I will do here is I'm just quickly doing 3 blocks, and and in the process, I'm just setting this flex styling that will accommodate the 3 up view. And I'm sorry if I'm using float 33 because there's 2 CSS ways to style this. One is called floating, the other is flex. They technically do something different, but in the end, the result is essentially the same. So here we go. I got 3 blocks that should each take up 33% of a row. If I hold Control, so right now you got the green bar showing this one is selected. If I hold Control and click extra blocks, then it'll show them as all selected. And then the tools at the top are for interacting with all selected blocks. There's a similar icon over on each block. If you would choose that one, it's going to only work with that block. But if you choose the one up here on the top, while you have 3 selected, you can create a block copy that's my 3 up display. Whoop. 3 up display. Sample. And I'm done. And now it added that to the library. If I go back here, it'll be in my personal, most likely. There it is, my 3-up display. And if I edit, now you can see there are the 3 blocks that were copied in. One of the things so if you wanted to, you could come in later and work with this copy. Let's say one of these 3, maybe you want to adjust the template text in each one so that it gives some instruction to the end user after they drop it in, use this column to talk about this, use this column to talk about that, or if you wanted to adjust certain attributes of these blocks, you can do that. Say, okay, maybe I want these all to be in a same stripe. So then you could come and add some extra, stripe dark. And we'll go ahead and put stripe dark on all of these.
So once you take this content that you're saving and you put that on the page, then I could theoretically change the flex to 50 instead of 33. I could delete one. Okay. That's exactly what I'm looking for.
Exactly.
Okay. So
the
then,
thing that, go ahead.
I was going to say, so then my other question is when I'm accessing the library, part of the problem I have is that everything loads every time I go to the library.
Yep.
How do I stop that from is there a way to, because so when I would land on this page, they're all collapsed and my previews aren't there. And then it starts to load them and it loads a bunch. And then, it'll load a bunch more.
Nope. Undeniably, that is a tedious situation.
Okay.
We don't do anything right now. Content library is still new, but we're talking about a whole slew of new enhancements that we're going to be doing to content library to improve things like that. So while today it is a little bit tedious, look forward to the next version because we can do things like do lazy loading of images, right? So right now the screen is only showing, this handful. So it had to load those images, but nothing else that's showing would have to have loaded. And as you scroll, then the browser will, oh, hey, I got to be able to show these, and it will dynamically go out and ask for new images based on what's in the viewable area on your screen. So we're not doing anything like that today, but that's something we would look toward, for the future.
Very soon, one version or so.
Well, what you just showed me will help immensely. So that's great.
Rather than putting all the individual parts and pieces into your content library, if you build, templates of the commonly used stuff, you can always drop them on there and delete a piece, so you can build a superset template. And then once it's dropped onto the page, just delete the parts you don't want.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
So some of the things are a little bit tedious now, but you find ways to work around them and then provide that feedback because it's going to lead to us making adjustments and changes to make it, nicer for everybody.
Some other enhancements we're working on in the content library is a better interface right in the initial view so that there's searching, a way to prioritize your favorite blocks to the top. Right now, I think it comes up in alphabetical order. So
that would be great too.
To filter like build a filter block sort of technology into here. The lazy loading, as John said, that delays the loading of the image, so that you can interact with it before the image is fully loaded. And then the on-demand scrolling so that the whole thing should be snapping and faster. We're also contemplating ways to make creating that little thumbnail easier. It's a multi-step process right now, so we haven't planned fully yet, but we're aware that needs to be easier than what it is. Then go ahead, John.
I was going to say another aspect that we're thinking through as it relates to filtering through this information in a way that's easier. We found that we use terminology internally at Northwoods when we talk about the kinds of things we put into the content library, right? Sometimes we create page templates, which are these or this landing template. We use that term page template when there's a lot of blocks in a long configuration and a long page, and that's what we call that type of thing. Well, okay, well, let's take that bit of taxonomy that we use internally and make it something that you can filter on, right? Just show me the page templates, and then basically having a way to assign these different types to individual block copies so that it's easier to find them. I think we often will talk about like card displays or what's another one, modules. We use these terms internally, and we want to be able to communicate effectively with you guys about it. And so if we all get on the same page and use the same dictionary, then the UI kind of is born out of that. So we're looking at ways to do a little taxonomy review of the way we use it in order to set it up for clients, and then make that an easier way to filter on. So that, and we're actually looking at a new type of construct as far as content goes. And do you think this is a reasonable time to talk about that, Pat?
Yeah,
Talking about
let's
sections?
do a little introduction. So it's kind of changing the subject slightly. But one of the things that you just showed was the 3 across, 3 up. And the way that those get linked on the page right now is the fact that they all have a float 33 and they have a dark stripe. And
Right.
we're using a little bit of implied logic to say, oh, these 3 go together because they have the same name. And so there's 3 across. And so we have to do a reasonable, I don't know if it's not guessing, we're calculating, determining
Right.
that these 3 go together. We're coming up with a construct called section, where you would be able to drop blocks into a new type of block called a section, and then all of them would share, it would be one stripe, one slice across the screen, and then they would share padding on the top, padding on the bottom, background image, background color, a bunch of other attributes, et cetera. And then you would drop blocks in there, and then those blocks would inherit or would know how to behave based on what section they're in. So it's a new construct. It's kind of a row definition. So that's new, when we're hot on the trail of developing that right now. It's a bit complex, but it will give you more flexibility when you're laying these out. And those would go into the content library too. Sections would be dropped in there, but it'd be an easier way to associate stuff together and build floats. You have a little visual of that, John.
You know, I don't have a great visual of it right now.
No, I mean,
but
on the live, you showed the style guide and said, let's give an example.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
of what you're talking about.
Let's see here. No. Oh yeah, I think in this preview here.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So on this preview page, this is a style guide. So many of you have seen ones like this where we lay out blocks with simple, ipsum lorem type text, and then we put all the different ways you can style those blocks to accomplish a layout that you want. Well, yeah, so from this flex 25 all the way down to this flex 25, that's, technically one stripe in our system. And we've set up some boundary HTML scaffolding that all of these blocks then sit in. Well, the idea would be, let me create that section. So, okay, yeah. What styles do you want on this section? Oh, well, I want this to be this kind of stripe, but today I want it to have this image as a background. And when I put this image, I know it's dark, so I want to make sure to say the text can be a light color so it looks good on top of this dark image. Oh, okay. And then the idea would be, okay, I've got this block. I want to drag that in. I want to drag this one in. Oh, I put one I didn't want. I want to drag it back out. Since I created the section and controlled the styling in one place, now I can move blocks that don't need as much styling individually. They just need to know, all I know is I'm a 25%er. That's what I'm, and they don't each need to know, well, I'm also in stripe dark or stripe image background with extra padding. It's like right now it can be quite complex to adjust every block with all these parent style information so that they lay out the right way. So we're hopefully going to make that a lot easier for us internally and for you guys as a result. So
be able to group blocks together.
Yep.
Like common shared styling information, all in one definition per block.
Right.
A container that contains multiple blocks.
Right. And as a result, you'd have probably some extra admin screens for configuring those collections of styles. So then you could later on, do that grouping and reuse that stuff. That's the type of thing. Another interesting thing from my perspective, I guess, is in the process of doing that section block, Well, now I'm going to have a block editor that needs to be able to add blocks. Well, okay, well now it's going to look that in my mind looks a lot like this screen, right? Because I got this list of blocks down here. Well, as a result, we're going to be able to make block libraries, block copies in the library more easily extensible. You'd be able to add new blocks from within this dialog and make adjustments, more granular adjustments to each copy so that you don't have to, I messed it up, I have to delete this and I have to make a new one. It should streamline things, I think, and make the quality of life, it's a quality of life improvement for sure, I guess. But anyway.
All right. That's the list of our questions that we got. Forms and content library was kind of the focus today. Showed a couple new things that we're going to be doing. The content, the section block, there's a new one coming. Some enhancements we're contemplating for the forms library. Other enhancements to the content library, the initial interface, so that it's easier to sort through and find. What we put the content library out there a couple of years ago, and it has proven to be immensely popular. Probably the number one most used feature inside of Titan when you're building out pages. So everybody loves it. So we realized that there's lots of stuff we could make better, faster, easier, and that's been one of the focuses of where we're putting our development efforts internally. In that, so people interacting with blocks. Also get a fair number of questions around forms. We have done the inside of Titan. Our current philosophy is we're going to continue to enhance forms incrementally so that basic forms can be done inside of Titan. We also have a very powerful forms logic engine that we have built for a couple clients, but it's more programmer specific. So we have really complex and powerful forms technology available for people that need advanced data entry. And we have
crazy workflows.
Crazy workflows, yeah, all that stuff. So we built all that. And we've also got basic forms that you see today, what you're using right now. In the middle is these other companies like JotForm and Cognito Forms, and there's others that have built their whole business model around forms. And they have built the model knowing that they have to integrate with other people's websites. And so we are happy to endorse or provide support for those. People right now are using HubSpot forms. I'm trying to think of the other ones. There's a whole bunch, and they're eluding me at the moment. The other forms that we integrate with, where people are doing more marketing automation, but the pure forms developers are people that we'd be happy to integrate with. If you guys want to experiment and go get a free trial over there, start playing with it, see if you can build it. Happy to talk to you further about how to integrate that stuff into Titan, so that you can drop your forms onto Titan pages seamlessly. And then we can build more connectors depending upon what sort of demand you guys have, build more connectors for further and better and more deeper integration into Titan with third-party options. So basic, really advanced, and in the middle, third parties is kind of how we're thinking about it at the moment. Any other questions out there? Anything from server products? Any things we didn't cover? Any hot topics? Akima, Joylyn, anything? Otherwise, we appreciate. Go ahead, Joylyn.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so one of the things that we've been talking about is overhauling our homepage with just some movement. And I thought at one point at one of the user groups that was discussed and that was going to be also added to Titan. Is that already something that's there that I just need to be trained on? Or is that something that was talked about but didn't come to fruition?
Nope. We have a movement for like video or for sliders or for what do you when
for,
you say
fading in of stuff or, text fading in or, loading as you go down the page, that type of stuff.
It's all built into the Reflex template and the JavaScript libraries that support that. So depending upon your design, how that's so in your, I think if I'm not mistaken, you have an older template. Yeah. So I don't think that has gotten the benefit of all of the additions that we put into our standard add-ins now. So the new standard add-ins that we have with the Reflex template and all the work that we've done internally on there has all of a whole bunch of motion type stuff right out of the box.
Okay.
And so, yeah, very, very basic to do. I know that's not John's focus.
Yeah.
Moving stuff in there, but the whole front end team, which provides the basic frameworks and the templates, has all of that stuff built in.
Yeah,
Okay.
and they're making changes to that regularly and keeping, I don't know if that is that even beneficial. There's all the work that our front end team does. They maintain this collection of add-ins that we can then use in other places that are built on top of the Titan framework, essentially. And so there's a lot of technological advances they've made in the way they do designs and implement those things on Titan. So yeah.
So in your redesign, we would move you to the newest version of the Reflex framework and all those JavaScript libraries that do all of that movement and fading and twirling and whatever else you want. There's a whole collection of stuff,
Okay.
all available
Okay.
to entertain you and your bosses and the users out there. All right. Thank you everybody else for coming. Any follow-up questions, be happy to send an email back to our team over here. We can follow up with you, and appreciate you all. Thanks for coming to office hours. Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks. You too.